How can we make the world better? By making ourselves better. The Dr. Joe Show explores how you can make positive personal change by using his groundbreaking and highly effective I Am approach to understand who we are and why we do what we do. Your small changes can have big effects.
Join us now for the Dr. Joe Show with your host, Dr. Joe Schrand.
Stretch the kindness, brush with madness. Is it sadness or just a show? Then go, 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 go. Then go, 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 go. Then go, 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 go.
All right, folks, welcome to the Dr. Joe Show. You know, it's been almost 10 years that we've been doing this together. You know, we're in our 9th year. It's remarkable. And I'm so glad that all of you are still willing to listen. And I do hope that it's been helping you recognize that you're always doing the best you can, but if you don't like it, you can change it. That's what the I Am approach is about, right? You're at your current maximum potential. You're doing the best you can, but those small changes can have big effects. And you get to choose. You get to choose the kind of influence on people that you want to be. So we talk about lots of different things. And about a month ago, had a guest on. We're talking about some very difficult topics to talk about with our kids. But as our author says, what's mentionable is manageable. So Elena Lister is associate professor of clinical psychiatry at New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell Medical Center and the senior consulting analyst for grief at Columbia University Psychoanalytic Center. She treats adults and children facing all life issues, specializes in grief, and is a frequently sought out expert on dealing with loss in schools and across the country. Dr. Lister is the co-author of I Will Remember You, a guidebook through grief for teens. We had Dr. Lister on about a month ago, but I am really glad that you are back tonight, Dr. Lister, to talk about some continued stuff about death and how we talk with children. So welcome, Dr. Lister.
Thank you. Actually, I'm delighted to be back. I really enjoyed our last conversation.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Glad to be here.
I'm delighted to have you here because, you know, folks, just prepare yourself. This can be a really difficult topic to talk about, but we avoid this so much that we send a message to our kids, don't talk about it. And that is just not going to help them. And this quote, what's mentionable is manageable, is such an important part of the book. Dr. Lister, let's just start there. Why is it manageable if you can talk about it?
Great question. First of all, I have to credit Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
He had a version of that I just sort of co-opted and shortened and actually allude to crediting him because I wish I could claim that it was all my brilliant idea, but it was just appreciating his bringing that forward and me really finding that true all the time that made me want to put it in the book. But it's true because of a few things. One, there's another one, not from Mr. Rogers, which is if you name it, you tame it. And so if you can name your feelings, I don't know what I feel. I'm all confused. It's overwhelming. I'm angry. I'm sick. Then you've already gotten a sense of management of it, a little bit of a feeling of it's not as overwhelming if I can name it. I can look at it. I can think about it. So that's one thing. And so if you can mention it, you are articulating it, naming it. And the other is that we keep a lot of stuff inside, all of us. We walk around with all these ideas in a bubble above our head, with all sorts of thoughts that we're not sharing because we think they'd upset other people, maybe they're unkind. And so I think that what you can find is that if you can say it to someone, then you're not alone with it.
Right.
You feel like you've created a sense of deep connection and safe space to talk about something which is hard to talk about. And you just feel like, yeah, I'm not alone. I think I mentioned last time that I have a mother-in-law who died at 99, and she used to say that pain shared is pain halved. And I feel like what is mentionable is manageable is connected to that. because if you're sharing it with someone, then you are indeed they're helping you carry it.
Yeah. And this idea that, we worry that we'll upset others if we say things, that's just a reframe for you really care. If you're worried that you're going to upset somebody else, it means you care. But the chances are pretty good they care about you too.
I love that. I like that reframe. That's great.
And
Yeah,
then,
it's true.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. Then you talk.
And actually it's especially true in grieving because people who are grieving worry deeply that they are a burden to other people. If they're around people who aren't grieving, then they're carrying this deep sadness inside or overtly, and everybody else is doing their thing. And they feel like I can't say this to somebody because it will ruin their day, it will pull them down, they'll think they have to take care of me. And so a lot of people who are grieving don't share a lot of what they're feeling. And in my experience, the more you share it, the easier the grief is processed, and that the other people want to be able to help you. For people who are with someone who's grieving, a big feeling is helplessness. How do
Yes.
I help this person? They're so upset, they're so deeply in pain. So if you talk about it, you're helping them help you, and they feel better
Yeah.
because
And, and is it also that the people who recognize that that other person is grieving, they also may be afraid to bring that up as well?
yes, 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 yes. I had a daughter who died at age 6, and I remember it felt like she died of leukemia, and after she died, people never mentioned her name, and I felt like I wanted to sing her name
Yeah.
every place I went, and because they were afraid they would upset me, and the response to that is, I'm upset already. You
Yeah.
can't upset me by saying her name. Her name is music to my ears. And
Right.
a lot of people who are grieving feel that. They want the person that they're grieving for to be remembered.
Yes.
So, yeah,
So
absolutely.
important. Yeah. So folks, the book is Giving Hope: Conversations with Children About Illness, Death, and Loss. Elena Lister and her co-author Michael Schwartzman. It's really a powerful book uh, because, as we're saying, we don't talk about death very much. It scares us, and understandably. I mean, we're human beings. We have a prefrontal cortex that anticipates the future, and that future, when that future is, we know what's going to be happening. And so, a lot of people, it activates that fear, that anger, that depression, and yet being able to talk about it is so important. Last time we spoke about many aspects of the book, but there was a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, and that's why I wanted you to come back. I'm so honored that you have.
Gosh, I am. I'm honored. Yeah.
One of the things is, and again, audience, this is tough, is about suicide. I mean,
Mm,
there's one thing about death when somebody dies of we call natural causes. How do we talk about this? But suicide takes on another aspect. And can we talk about that? How do we talk with kids about suicide?
yeah. Suicide, the people who are around the person who ended their life by suicide often feel that other people looking at them like maybe they caused it
Mm.
or maybe they did something. And so part of what makes it hard to talk about for the people who had a loved one and end their life by suicide is they feel like they must be seen in some very negative light. And actually, we used to say all the time, and people still do unfortunately say committed suicide. And
Right.
nowadays, that's considered not okay to say because committed means it's a crime. And while you may not agree that it's a thing to do, it's not a legal crime and it stigmatizes the person who ended their life that way and the family. But I think the notion for a child that somebody would choose to leave, choose
Beautiful.
to end their life is frightening, and especially if that person who ended their life by suicide is one of their parents,
Mm.
they feel often, "Did I do something wrong that made, mommy or daddy wanna leave?" Or
Yeah.
aunt or grandma, whoever it is. Also, it's harder to understand. What is this thing? So
Right.
I think we're scared about it, and, it's may be harder for us to relate to unless we've had a really serious depression. But it's talked about all the time in the media. So and so ended their life by suicide, some famous person. And kids of all ages are being exposed to that.
Yeah.
There was a while ago that 13 Reasons Why, a whole TV series about a young woman who ends her life by suicide that everybody in like middle school and up was talking about. And even the middle schoolers may have younger siblings who were overhearing it. So even though it's hard, I feel like we have to talk about it so that those kids are not left alone with whatever thoughts they might have about it that actually might be even harder to tolerate than the reality, which is hard enough.
And in the book, you say that it's really ages 6 and above, so that we don't really bring this up with kids younger than 6. What's the cutoff there? Why that particular age?
I used to have a mentor that said that everything happens around age 7, plus or minus 1. 7 plus or minus 1 is like when all sorts of conceptual things pull together and a child's cognitive functioning reaches another level. And so that was one reason for it. And two is because they're more likely at age 6, first grade, or kindergarten or second grade, might be exposed to people talking about it outside of their world, outside of their inner home
Yeah.
world. Um, but a child who's age 3, age 4 may not be on the internet as much and may not be wandering around alone or on their own in the school bus or so on. So that's that one reason, but it's a very soft cutoff. It
Yeah.
really depends on your child and knowing your child. And if the death was by suicide, and that is going to be talked about, say at a memorial service or talked about on the phone to a relative when there's a younger than 6-year-old child who might be in earshot, and as we say, little pitchers have big ears, then you may have to explain it before 6 because they're hearing it anyway. And if you don't talk about it, they won't come to you with their questions. And there are ways to talk about it. So, one of the things I was recommending in the book is you tell the truth. I'm a truth teller to kids. I don't lie. You tell the truth, nothing but the truth, but not necessarily the whole truth, at least not all at once. So the idea is for kids of any age, if it's hard for yourself to get to the suicide part of that death, or you really think it's going to overwhelm your child, then you first say that the person died. And then you wait to see what questions they have. And then not long after, you tell them that they died by suicide. And that's when
So,
they ended their own life. Then
and
there are
so
ways to talk about it. Yeah.
and we will talk about that because it is about truth. It's 6 years old, the soft cutoff, but the other truth is we have a pretty hard cutoff for our first commercial break. So we're gonna do that now. We'll take a commercial break. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show, Elena Lister, talking about how we talk about death and suicide with our kids. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show. Well, welcome back, folks, to the Dr. Joe Show. Elena Lister, our expert here, talking with kids about death, which we all know happens. We avoid it as much as we can, and there's no rush. But when it happens, we have to be able to engage our kids with it, or else they will not think they can talk about it. They will carry that silence with them. And as Elena was saying, then they will be alone. And that's the last thing we want. But suicide itself, we do say we don't say committed suicide, completed a suicide. Even that is tough. It's hard to find the right words for it, in part because it just seems so foreign to us. I have a lot of patients, certainly, who can become suicidal. What I ask them is, do you really want to die, or do you wish you had a different life? And the
Great question.
vast majority of times, there's a different life. And then we use the I am. We say, so what changes can we make? Because unless there's something really chronic, something you cannot avoid, it's usually the people want a different life. They just feel the despair in this one.
Mm.
So you really want to die, or do you wish you had a different life? But sometimes we can't stop it. And sometimes we do have folks who suicide, who decide that they do not want to continue on this planet in this way. How do we talk with our kids about it?
Well, one of the ways that is often true, but not always, but is probably the easiest for a child to understand, is that they had a disorder in their mind, and that disorder in their mind made them not able to see that things could get better in their life.
Mm.
It's a loss of hope, and I think it's a tragic loss of hope, but I wouldn't use the word tragic with a young child. So, you're basically saying and this is thought to be true now, there's a biological factor going on here, and that's why it runs in some families.
And it's so limbic as well. It's that emotional and almost impulsive part of the brain. And sometimes what I think, especially in our adolescence, but certainly in adults, they can look into the future because we have a prefrontal cortex that can anticipate the future,
Mhm.
but all they see is more here and now.
Right,
Nothing will change.
and in
That's
that,
terrible.
more despair.
And then more
Yes.
despair.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we could spend a minute or two if you wanted at some point talking about how do you prevent your child from falling into that way of thinking.
Absolutely. We want to talk about that as
Okay.
well.
But so if you are explaining it that this person has a disorder in their mind, they're not thinking clearly. And that's because they have a disorder, and we call that disorder depression. And that disorder leads them to feel like the only way they could end feeling how terrible they feel is by ending their life. They cannot see any other option. And many people struggle not to do it, but they time and again keep feeling like I can't bear this. And in terms of the kids, how do you explain to a child if a parent ends their life? And the way I've thought about it is that the parent feels like actually the child would be better off without them. It's actually not an abandonment out of lack of love. It's abandonment to the child. That's how it feels. But what the person who is suicidal is experiencing is, I I'm a burden. I'm a problem. And my children are going to be harmed by my continuing to be around. So they're almost doing it to protect them.
Yeah,
And it's so hard to understand, but in fact, that is indeed true.
but I think that's so important for us to understand because we will judge the person who has suicided. But what you're implying is it's an act of love?
I mean, it is an act of distorted love.
Agreed,
But
but
from the person's perspective, often, yes. There's often an element of shame with it, so that person
it
is subsumed by shame and by, like, despair, and in addition, they think, "What child would wanna have me as a parent? They're better off without me." Yeah.
and then when the kid begins to think that as they grow older and as they reflect, in the book, one of the things you say is they may ask why, but also, didn't that person love me enough?
Right, right. So the point you're making is straight indeed from what I believe also. Yes, they loved you, but the disorder they had led their brain, their mind to come to a conclusion that this child that they loved, you, would be better off without them. And so, yes, it's not a rejection of the child. And you say that you did nothing wrong.
Right.
Your aunt, uncle, father, mother loved you deeply, but they could not step outside of the thinking that was caused by the disease.
You
So the disease model is the easiest way to explain it. And it's often true that it's an outgrowth of depression.
right.
Not always, but often enough.
But this idea then, the kid saying, "Was it my fault? Should I have done something better?" This is an expression of the powerlessness that
Yes.
we have. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's right. And right. Well, it's an attempt to answer the question why. Well, why did it happen? This makes no sense. Oh, okay, I know it must be something I did. And in a way, there's a reparative aspect to that because then the child says, "Well, I know if I don't ever do that again,
Right.
and everybody else I love won't end their life by suicide." Gives a child, and all of us, we all do this, a measure of a sense of control. So, when we're desperate to understand why, we sometimes fill it with things that are very hurtful to ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the most difficult feeling for a human being to tolerate is being powerless.
Yeah.
I think the reason is because millions of years ago, if we were powerless, we were lunch. We were
Mm,
about to be eaten by something. So we defend against that by making things up. I should have done this. If only I had done that. Could have done this, as opposed to experiencing the fact that there was nothing you could do.
right. That's right. Do you know when my daughter died, I swore to myself in my head that I was never going to let any other person I loved die.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, of course, but it was my attempt to say I felt so powerless to make her survive her leukemia. So that's the idea I came up with. Um, so what you can do though with that powerlessness is offer a child a way to feel some element of power, meaning they could put their pain to good use.
How do we do that?
Yeah. So they could donate from their, a dollar to a suicide prevention organization.
Mm,
They could be not afraid to talk about it. Yes, my so and so ended their life by suicide. There's no shame in that. It was somebody who had a disease and he loved me very much. In other words, not to get caught up in the emotional part of it, and that helps you step back from the powerlessness a little bit. And the other is something we all struggle with for our entire lives, which is acceptance.
yes.
I could not stop that. I wanted to, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in life that we want to stop that we can't, or
There-
make happen that we can't.
yeah. And that is a tough thing to bear, but it is part of who we are as humans.
And it's a harsh reality to learn young,
It
but
is.
it is a reality you're going to learn at some point.
Your first example makes me think of one of my phrases: contribute to humanity to help preserve your sanity.
Yeah, I
So
like
when you're
that.
giving to others, you become more valuable, actually, and you
Yeah.
become a benefactor, and benefactors are highly prized in our society. We talk about that with substance use as well. Contribute to society to help with your sobriety.
I like that.
See, there's a
Yes, it's
way to
true.
do it.
I mean, I'm a big believer in contributing to leaving a place better than when you came
Yeah,
to it
right.
anyway, and people better than when you first met them. So that's totally in keeping. And it gives the pain some place to go, something
Yes.
to do with it.
And again, we wouldn't feel that pain if we didn't love,
Right.
even proportion to how much we love.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Grief is the price of love, as they say.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
boy, unfortunately, it's happening a lot in our world these days, and this, we have parents who do this, relatives, we have siblings as well. Is there a difference, you think, about who has suicided in how we approach the kid?
Well, I think if it's a sibling, that has a different layer to it. One, they're not losing a caregiver as directly. I mean, we hopefully siblings take care of each other, but
Right,
it's not a
right.
parental figure. And two, it might be closer to who they are.
Yes.
So a child then may think, am I going to get that? Is that going to happen to me? Am I going to want to do that? And they get more scared. So you listen when you're talking to a child about this to see you have any questions, and then you pause and wait.
Yeah.
But that's one part, and when it's a parent, there's that thing that you and I have been talking about, which is, "Why did they leave me? Am I bad?"
Yeah. If it's a sibling, have you found that the surviving sibling either has survivor guilt, or are they angry with the parents? Are they saying, "Why didn't you do something?"
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely well said. That guilt, I mean, I think we get survivor guilt often, however the person died, and suicide just all the more so because it seems to represent a choice in dying. And so if somebody had a choice, then you could have influenced, why didn't you, mom and dad? Why am I here and they're not? And the answer is because we can't always control it and it's a disease. that is a disease that your sibling had. I mean, I get called to schools often when there's a student who ended their life and they may have a sibling in the school. Even a young sibling in that circumstance, you have to explain to the young child because they're going to be hearing it said at school.
Yeah.
That's yeah. So um, I mean, I just think you want to help a child understand that there are things in this life we can't control that make us really sad. And there are also many, many things that we can control, and there's a lot of joys. So when somebody dies by suicide, you just help them not feel guilty, not feel responsible, because they're not. I mean,
No.
I can say across the board that a parent doesn't end their life because their child is problematic. So, you can say that with conviction.
And it is a choice, even though it's hard for us to fathom why someone would make that choice. But we have choices as well. And one of the choices that we make is we take a commercial break to hear from our sponsors so that we can continue to survive without being powerless. So, with that in mind, we'll take a break. We'll be right back with the Dr. Joe Show and Dr. Lister. Well, welcome back to the Dr. Joe Show. I hope you guys are still there listening. This is a tough, tough topic to talk about, but we must talk about it because death is sadly part of our life. It's not going to go away. And we're talking in this case about, somebody who feels so much despair that all they can see in the future is more here and now, that there's nothing will change. One of the things that I say to someone like that is I'll ask them what size shoe they wear, which totally startles them. And they'll tell me, and I'll say, well, what size shoe did you wear when you were 8 years old?
Mhm.
That changed, and this will change. It's
Mhm.
difficult, but
I
I
like that.
believe, that small changes can have big effects. And, you know, do you really want to die or wish you had a different life? But off air, we were talking about another tragic event. Dr. Lister, you want to talk about the student and what happened?
Yeah, it's actually not uncommon, sadly, in terms of, when I get asked to consult at schools,
Yeah.
a student ended their life by suicide, and they sometimes choose to do it on the school premises. And so other children may actually witness it or see this student after they've died. And I mean, in that case, you have to talk to every age child who could possibly be around there because they're going to be hearing all about it.
Yes.
And why a teenager or I've actually worked with a child as young as fifth grade would do that. It has the same biological basis as a disease, um, and it's even more sad. It's even more sad because that person, as you were noting, has so much life ahead that could be different. But people often ask me, "What's the best prevention for suicide?" I'm worried that there was a student in my child's class that ended their life that way. How do I make sure my child doesn't do that? I get asked this all the time. And the way I think about it, the best prevention is communication. And it may not be that you can prevent it, but when you can, communication is a part of it. So you say to your child, no matter what you've done, no matter how angry you think I am, no matter how shamed you are, there is nothing that you can come to me with that I would not help you with. There is a way out, there's a way through everything. Even if you can't see it, I will help us find it.
Yeah.
And I would wanna know, and, I can promise you that I will not hold your feeling that way against you. I love you, and I will help do whatever I can to help things be better for you.
Yeah.
So that way, a child thinks if they have suicidal feelings, "Oh, but I could tell my parent." And that's when you have a chance of intervention.
Absolutely. We have to create a safe space, a foundation, a home environment where kids feel they can tell us anything, anything. And there's something folks call theory of mind. We speak about this a lot. We can't see someone's mind, so we have to theorize and guess what they think or feel, especially what they think or feel about us. And that means that secrets aren't secrets because of what we've done, but secrets
Mm.
are secrets because we worry, how will someone judge me if they know my secret?
Yeah, that's
Kids,
right.
you need to know your parents love you and they want to be there with you. Never worry alone. Major part.
And your parent may be angry with you. Anger is not loving you. Anger is, in fact, because they love you so much. So if your parent gets angry at you, not to experience that as a pulling love away. And therefore, a child knows, okay, I want to tell them they're going to be angry about, but they're still going to love me.
Right.
Love is unconditional.
Absolutely. Anger is an emotion designed to change things. We
I
get
like
angry
that.
when we want somebody to do something different, start doing something or stop doing something.
Yeah,
But when is the last time you got angry at someone treating you with respect?
right. Exactly.
So if your parent is angry, they want to see something different. That doesn't mean you've done something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And in fact, it may be that they have some notion of something about you which may not be actually all on target. They want you to be a ballet dancer. And in fact, you're not happy being a ballet dancer. These are the kinds of things, right? So, but if you can talk about it, then we're back to what is mentionable is manageable. Now
Absolutely.
we're having a conversation. Now we're trying to understand each other.
Right. Right. And it's also important for you as a kid, if you're listening, that you can talk with your parents or some adult that you trust. There must be some adult. And we know this when it comes to something called resiliency, that for every resilient child, there was at least one adult who valued them
Mm,
and perceive that value. Folks, you are at your IM. This is the best you can do. If you're depressed, if you're suicidal, that is still the best you can do right then. But let's step back and look again. What's going on in those four domains? If that's the best you can do, don't judge it, but look again.
mm,
Again, look, respect, understand it.
mm.
Because with that understanding, how are you meant to change something if you don't know why it's happening?
That's right. I totally agree. And I'm really glad you brought up the notion of speaking not to a parent, but another trusted adult.
Yes.
And that could be one of your parents' friends. It could be another relative. It could be a member of the clergy. It could be a therapist. It could be a teacher. I mean,
It could be a janitor.
could be a janitor.
You're right. But
Exactly.
somebody that you trust.
Yes, and I think if you as a parent can make it clear to your child that you're not gonna be devastated if it's not you. What you care about is that they find someone who they can trust, who will help them through any dark moment. Because kids also worry, well, my mom or dad's gonna want me to come to them, but I don't wanna talk to them. That's fine. Just a trusted adult.
Yeah. So that is part of giving hope, right? Are we giving hope al- also to the kids, but also to the parents that it's not always you if your
Right.
kid doesn't want to talk with you. It may be that they're actually trying to protect you.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Right. And that's okay. What you want is your child to be supported by someone who has the qualities that you'd want them to have. And so put your ego aside,
Yeah.
parent. Not
Yeah.
about your ego. It's about your child having access to the person they trust.
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that will come back to benefit you as well as a parent.
Totally.
Trust me on that one.
I
So
trust.
thank
Yeah.
you. So, we've spoken about how we talk with kids about suicide, but there's also all this stuff happening in the news, in the media. I mean, school shootings and wars, and, the world can seem so deadly and terrifying. What about that? Because kids hear about death in the media all the time. One of my colleagues, remarkable writer, said, one of the phrases, if it bleeds, it leads. That's what news is
Hmm.
about.
Right.
We don't hear about people giving each other, cupcakes. We hear about horrible things. We hear about people poisoning cupcakes. So, how do we manage this, Elena? How do we manage the media?
Yeah. I mean, the more clicks, the better. And clicks are drawn, things that we get fascinated with bad stuff. We do. So I will again turn to Mr. Rogers because he had a really good thing to say about this. I really like this. He would say, look to the helpers. So you
Mm,
explain to a child, yeah, there are people who will do bad things. They might shoot some people at school. But in that same moment, there are all those police people who are rushing to try and help and save and stop this person from shooting more people. There's the doctors who run to the scene to help the aided. There's the other family members who are gathering to help their child or adult feel supported. So, in any bad scene, there is good stuff. And there are good people trying. So it's like going from telephoto lens to wide angle lens.
You.
Broaden it so that the child says, yeah, there's scary stuff in this world. And also, even in scary moments, there are people who can help. And that's, to me, makes it feel a little bit safer out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because otherwise, kids can get so anxious. And again, they think that this
Yeah.
is all the world is going to be like.
Yes.
And sometimes that leads them to the despair. That leads them to say, what's the point? Why
Right.
go on?
Yeah, that's right. And when it comes to school things, dangers at school, in particular, it's very helpful to point out to your child, what are you doing and what is the school doing to keep them safe? So
Mm,
it was a school shooting. A student brought a gun into school. So how do you, well, actually now we have gun detectors.
right.
So you point out the things that are remedial that help a child feel like, okay, well, that won't happen again because now they do this instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's an unsafe world.
it's
That's the
sadly
reality.
not. Look, the reality, folks, is it's never been a safe world,
Right.
right? There's always been predators, right? We've always had predators. But as soon as we became the social animal, our survival potential increased so dramatically, human beings are everywhere,
Yes.
everywhere. But I believe that to access the protection of that group, you must contribute to the group, which is
Mm,
why you must have value, which
mm.
is why we all want to feel valued. So just because there are these dark people in the world and there's evil, it is sadly part of who we are. There is a dark side to humanity, but the vast majority of people are kind and want to
Right.
help each other. We would
That's right.
not have been able to survive if we weren't a social animal like that.
That's right. And part of that goodness is that in the face of something really like a mass shooting or a war, you can do something. It gets us back to, okay, I'm not helpless here completely. I can write letters to my congressperson
Right.
with my mom or dad or whatever. I can donate money again. I can write letters to the people who had losses. So cards, I can draw cards so that they feel better.
Yeah.
So these are the ways in which we feel like we will be less helpless in a moment.
Yeah.
And I really believe in making yourself useful, putting your
Yeah.
brain to use.
Yeah. And maintaining that connection, that sense of shared, even if it's shared helplessness, at least you shared it.
Right. That's right. We're in it together. Yeah.
Yeah. Bring it
That's,
together. And,
yeah.
I'm very grateful to be in it together with my sponsors as well, because, you know, without them, I would be totally helpless no matter who I shared it with. So, with that in mind, let's take a listen to our sponsors and what they have to offer us. We'll be right back. And we're back with the Dr. Joe Show. Elena Lister, Giving Hope Conversations with Children About Illness, Death, and Loss. Dr. Lister, how do people get the book? It's really an important book to get.
Thank you. Basically, any place you get a book, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Good Reading. I mean, just any local bookstore. It's around.
Yeah, good. And people really, it's really worth reading. This isn't, you know, going to bring bad luck to you, as if, if I start to read about how to have a conversation with my kid about death, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. But at some point, folks, we all know this. A grandparent, aunt, and uncle, we talk about suicide. I mean, things happen. And one of the things that also happens is some people have a terminal illness where we know that it's going to be happening. We don't know necessarily how long. It could be quick, but sometimes we just know. So, Glenn, how do we talk with our kids about that, about terminal illness?
Mm. Yeah. I think the inclination may be to not say to, your child that it's terminal and just wait till the person dies. And I think that that's a shame. I hope that people won't do that. I think that's
Okay,
the inclination.
so that's what happens is
Yes.
so that's the old line, right, in psychiatry, "Denial is not just a river in Egypt." Right,
Exactly,
right.
exactly, yes. So, again, we get back to the fact that little pitchers have big ears. So if it's the child's grandfather, your father, and you're on the phone talking to the doctor from the hospital, and you're indicating things about the person being terminally ill, your child may overhear. Anything they could overhear, even if you don't think they're around or listening, you think they're sound asleep, always worth it. So to say, because again, you don't want to leave your child alone with it, but all for a bigger reason as well, which is that to me, when you know that someone is terminally ill, you're given the gift of time.
Mm.
And what you can do with that time is allow your child and help your child say goodbye to the person that they're losing. Express love, maybe express sorry. I was mean to you, Grandpa, last week. I was mean because you didn't bring chocolate over. I'm sorry, whatever. But it really helps in terms of the grieving. They could give it a parting gift and the person who's like, make a card, whatever, and the person who's dying has a chance to do that as well. So I think it's a lost opportunity for some real processing that is helpful to everybody. And it's also once you have somebody in your life as an adult who's dying, you're changed. And your
Yeah.
chances are your child's gonna pick up on it. We have a story in the book about a child who noticed that their father was crying all the time, and he
Mm.
thought that meant that his mother was dying,
Yeah.
but it wasn't his mother. It turned out that it was his father's father, which is also very sad, but very different to a seven-year-old than his mother died. But
Right.
because they weren't talking about it, he didn't understand, and he was panicked all the time. You children will create whatever you don't tell them about. They may come up with something that's even scarier.
Yeah. So so is talking about it in this particular case with the terminal illness, does it give kids a sense of comfort in some way that not just that they're not alone, but that this is part of our existence, and it
Yes.
doesn't need to be so scary, and it doesn't need to be so depressing. It's just part of who we are. It's part of our cycle of life, if you will.
Yes. That some people get really, really sick. And if you were talking to a young child, you might say big, big sickness. And
Mm.
it was so big that the doctors didn't have the medicines to make it go away. Usually they do. Almost always they do, but sometimes. And that happened with Aunt Jane or
Mm.
whomever. Um, and the kids who have had that experience come away and carry more of the person with them forward because they had some really meaningful exchanges, even young kids, even 2.5, 3-year-olds, with the person who then died. Um, and then when the person dies, it's not a big what? It's right. I understood. So the process is you say, we'll go back to Aunt Jane. Aunt Jane is really, really sick. She's got a big sickness and she's in the hospital. The doctors are doing what they can. Then you progress to, well, Aunt Jane's getting sicker. The doctors are using a lot of medicines, so we'll see what happens. And
Mm.
then Aunt Jane has gotten even sicker, and the doctors don't have the medicines to help make it go away at this point, and she's going to die.
Mm.
So I mean, which is what happens in terminal illness is a gradual progression. It makes sense to the child and they understand what's going on in the family before all that. And when the person dies, they're not like shocked. A sudden loss with no preparation is really hard. And those happen too.
Yeah.
So that's why I call it the gift of time. You're given the chance to know someone is dying and to be with them through it.
And remember, folks, that at a certain age, kids can begin to anticipate the future. Time is something that they begin to understand that something is changing. So it sounds like this is a way to just, it's more than just preparing them. It's including them in the
Yes.
process.
Yes, I love that including, which is why slightly veering off of this, I believe that you offer a child the chance to go to the funeral
Yeah.
and you can talk. I mean, we can have a whole nother conversation about that, but being included helps a child feel respected and trusted, and they will then come to you more often again in the future because you told them something that was really important and hard. So they will come to you with important and hard things, which is a beautiful thing, especially when they're teenagers.
That's so true.
Yeah. So I think it's painful and I think it's worth doing.
Yeah. And again, parents, adults, this is what the book is for, is to help you have these really difficult conversations. It's never an easy conversation to talk about that, but we have to have them or else kids will get the idea that they can't talk about it. And that leads to all sorts of real problems. So with that in mind, you know, we bring this all into the IM. So all of this stuff is, this is the best we can do. And, we're learning how to manage our lives. We're always doing the best we can, but we're influenced and responding to four domains: your home domain, the social domain, biological, and the I see. How do I see myself? How do I think other people see me? Because these four domains interconnect, a small change in any domain can have a big effect. So the first truth of the IN, small changes can have big effects. So Dr. Lister, what small change can you recommend to our listeners based on our topic for tonight?
Well, one that I think when I was on last time I didn't mention, which is meditating.
Mm.
And the reason for that is because it's a chance to get grounded. And when you speak to people and interact with people from a grounded place, you interact with more compassion, more care. You learn to listen, and listening is a key thing in life for relationships. So I'm a big believer in meditation. It's been proven to have beneficial effects on the immune system and the cardiac system and all the rest. But in addition, it improves relationships. So could be 5 minutes, could be 10 minutes, could be 20. I mean, so
And there's got to be so many techniques because I think some people just think meditating means that you just sort of sit and don't listen to your phone. There's more to it than that, right?
yes, exactly. Well, most people feel like you're supposed to stop thinking, and that isn't true.
Right.
And so they say, I can't do that. Or they think they need to sit still, which you also don't have to do. There's walking meditation.
Mm,
But what you can do is learn to observe your thoughts
yes.
and watch how they come in and they go out. And that learning to watch is where you get a measure of mastery over how you express yourself
Yeah.
and how something impacts you also.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in it. I meditate myself every day.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, Benson was this guy who sort of uncovered the
Yes.
relaxation response.
Yes.
He was a cardiologist who recognized that people's blood pressure were higher at the beginning of their meeting with him than at the end,
Mm-hmm.
as they
Mm-hmm.
were thinking all sorts of things. And so this deep breathing part is part of meditation. It does have a biological effect. It affects nitrous oxide in your brain. Nitrous oxide is laughing gas. So it really does help calm you down. So meditation, a small change with a big effect. Meditation, folks. Second truth of the I am. Everyone's got one. Everyone is interested through their I see domain, what you think about them, which has an effect on their biological domain. Because it feels different when you feel respected or disrespected. And you are part of
Sure.
someone's home or social domain. So the second truth of the IN, you control no one, but you influence everyone. You get to choose the kind of influence you want to be. Dr. Elena Lister, author, Giving Hope. What kind of influence do you want to be?
Well, Joe, when you and I talked last time, I gave you an answer which really just sticks with me, but I can expand a minute on it. That is, I want to be an influence for kindness. I believe that kindness is really important in our world. And as I was saying before, in conveying that I want the world wherever I go to be better, somehow or other, I've contributed, even just by being kind, holding a door for somebody,
Right.
that moment being better than it might have been otherwise. I believe that that's a beautiful way to be in this world. And similarly, compassion. So
Would be
compassion, there's a difference in compassion and empathy. Empathy being feel what you're feeling, and that's exhausting. And there's empathy fatigue. But compassion is I just wish you well. and you don't
Mm,
get tired. You don't get burnt out from that. So compassion is an endless well within ourselves of wishing other people well.
that is wonderful. And then what an influence to be that compassionate person. You're so right. It's so easy, folks. It's so easy to be kind.
Mm,
Really, just think about it. It's you open that door for someone. You
yeah.
recognize someone.
Yeah.
Even if you're getting cut off in traffic, you can think, well, maybe that person has diarrhea and they need to get someplace. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that
Oh.
that you can change this around without
That's right.
getting angry, But being kind, it is part of who we are as human beings, and it's so powerful. Think about it. When somebody says, you've done something for them and they say thank you, the other person usually says, "You're welcome,"
They feel good.
which means you're part of my group. You're
Yes, that's right.
welcome. We've
Yeah.
increased our group. Every friend was once a stranger.
Mm,
Remember that, folks.
I love that. That's
Every
great.
friend was once a stranger, and there are billions of potential friends in the world.
I
So that's
love
fun.
that. I love that.
Lena Lister, thank you so much once again for being on the Dr. Joe Show. You've given hope to a lot of people tonight.
Joe, thank you so much. It's an honor to be able to have a conversation with you. And I wish everybody out there well.
Thank you. Thanks, folks. Good night. We'll see you next week.